Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tracing the absolute epic evolution of the global railway. I mean, we're going to explore this massive journey from a struggling, kind of clunky steam experiment to a literal world-altering network that completely redefined human civilization. It's this incredible story of engineering, clever marketing, and just a relentless drive for progress.
But, to really appreciate this journey, we have to mentally anchor ourselves in the past for a second. Imagine a world where simply traveling 100 miles could take days. Days of exhausting effort. Imagine a painfully slow, completely disconnected world, long before massive machines effortlessly linked entire nations and fueled industrial revolutions.
The contrast is honestly staggering. On one side, you have the agonizing sluggishness of early travel, relying almost entirely on animal muscle and dealing with the elements. And on the other, the sheer velocity of modern transit. But there's a really wonderful historical irony here. The whole story of modern machine-driven railways, it actually began with horses.
Which brings us to Section 1, the invention of horsepower, marketing the steam engine. Okay, so to understand how this all started, we actually have to go back to the 1700s. Early inventors were desperately searching for more powerful ways to, well, move water and power their machines. First, innovators like Thomas Savery and Thomas Newcomen developed these primitive steam engines. But the tempo really picks up when James Watt enters the picture. Watt completely transformed these early concepts and radically improved their efficiency. But, as you probably know, having a great invention is really only half the battle, right? He still had to get people to actually buy it.
So, Watt had a pretty unique sales problem. He needed a way to explain this brand new, invisible steam power to people who basically only understood animal labor. His solution? He introduced a new measurement called horsepower. He literally compared the output of his shiny new machines to the physical strength of draft horses. It was, honestly, an ingenious 18th century marketing gimmick. And the craziest part? We still rely on it to measure power today.
Now on to Section 2, the first steam locomotives, the struggle for speed. So the obvious next step was to put this steam power on wheels. But the birth of the locomotive was a massive struggle. Back in 1804, the very first steam-powered locomotive appeared, and man, it was a high-stakes underdog story. These early trains were incredibly slow, highly unreliable, and in a pretty embarrassing twist of fate, these massive iron machines would sometimes literally lose races against actual horses. The technology just hadn't quite matured yet. But the momentum was absolutely building. By 1825, an engineer named George Stephenson finally cracked the code, building practical locomotives like the aptly named locomotion. But the real, definitive turning point came in 1829. Stephenson's famous rocket locomotive won the Rainhill trials. This was a massive public victory, and it undeniably proved that steam-powered trains were, without a doubt, the way of the future. And that victory at the Rainhill trials echoed across the entire world. Very soon after, railways were rapidly spreading out across Britain, aggressively connecting cities, industries, and people faster than ever before in human history. It was an absolute triumph of engineering. As the source material perfectly puts it, the railway age had begun.
Moving right along to Section 3, connecting the globe, building the modern world.
That British Railway's success inspired a vast global expansion. Suddenly, everyone wanted to lay down tracks. Across Europe, networks rapidly expanded through France, Germany, and Russia. Over in the United States, the achievement was just monumental. The Transcontinental Railroad literally united the east and west coasts. And in India, by 1853, the first passenger train made its historic run from Bombay to Than. It was a true global phenomenon spreading like wildfire.
But the really crucial takeaway here is that railways didn't just move things from point A to point B. By transporting raw materials, workers, food, and manufactured goods across vast distances, they became so much more than mere transportation. They basically became the economic backbone that built entire cities, fueled national development, and totally revolutionized global trade. Simply put, wherever the tracks went, civilization and economic growth followed.
Which brings us to Section 4, the future of speed, from steam to maglev.
So the drive for progress obviously never stopped. We moved from heavy iron and steam to sleek, gravity-defying marvels. Those romantic, but let's face it, very dirty early steam locomotives eventually had to step aside from modern diesel and electric trains. This completely transformed the network, making railways exponentially faster, safer, and far, far more efficient. And today, it's not even just about the trains themselves anymore. It's about the invisible technology that guides them.
Modern high-speed rail networks are managing millions of travelers seamlessly every single day. And they're doing this using cutting-edge innovations like advanced modern signaling systems and even artificial intelligence. The sheer logistics required to keep the modern world moving safely on rails, it's absolutely mind-boggling.
And that brings us to this staggering number, 430 kilometers per hour. Just think about that. That is a speed that would have been completely unimaginable to the early pioneers of steam. Today, magnetic levitation, or maglev trains, achieve these phenomenal speeds by literally floating above the tracks, eliminating friction entirely. It's basically the ultimate evolution of speed.
Tracing this journey really puts our progress into perspective, doesn't it? From horse-drawn wagons struggling through the mud to iron steam engines actually losing races to animals, all the way to floating magnetic trains hurtling along at 430 kilometers per hour, the railway is undeniably one of humanity's greatest inventions. It's a literal builder of global civilization that connected our world, and it continues to drive our progress straight into the future.
Which leaves us with this final thought as we wrap up this explainer. If we can go from measuring steam engines in horsepower to floating on magnets at hundreds of kilometers an hour, what will the next massive leap in transportation actually look like? Thank you so much for exploring the incredible evolution of global rail with me.